Pink Cloud Radio 72. And really, what I've been talking about since the last time, which was the Oz thing. Got into that, really. But there's other parts. There's other parts to the negligence of what Death King has really assembled. There's no name for it, really, though. The double steel Imperial Dragon that watches you sleep. Or anything you like. This Pink Cloud Invasion has just made a Spark Notice. Spark Notes aren't needed. Just read the whole thing. Find out. Hearts are not practical until they become unbreakable. Oz said this. I don't agree. Practicality, in its layman's terms, if you want to call it, is based on the analogy that there's a use for something. Well, everything has a use. It obviously does. There's an excuse if you need to say, oh, that's not practical. Well, there's an excuse then. That's not practical thinking. Well, most practical thinking people supposedly believe the earth was flat. So to say that practical thinking should be done, because the first person who said the earth is round was put in jail for it. So let's see if practical thinking really works. Over the years we've seen the invasion of this so-called practical thinking. So now we say hearts are not practical unless they become unbreakable. Well, first off, they are unbreakable. If they were breakable, then they would break. But there are heart attacks, there are other things that happen. I never hear people's hearts breaking, literally. Figuratively speaking, your emotions are not in your heart. They're in you. So like your heart beats for the feeling. But they are not the feeling. They understand it. The nervous system, all the attachments, break away and understand everything. So I could bring the symposium back to the brain and the mind, and what my eyes see, and what my nose smells, and what my mouth tastes, what my ears hear. But it's only practical in that extent. That's the practical thing. An eye is to see, a nose is to smell, That's why I think I don't agree with this practicality concept. Being practical with things actually proved the worst for civilizations and societies and people. It always proved the worst because it created a construct of saying that unless it's useful to everybody, it's not useful to anybody. That's not true. Because everything is useful to somebody. If it wasn't, there would be, first off, if the only things that were practical to people were the things that were popular or useful to everybody, then there would not be any entertainment right now. There would not be the living style of this entertainment right now, which is the desert of the real, pretty much. We don't want to look at the reality. We want to be the vestiges hanging on by a piece of thread at the end of it. Not worried about, the map has been made. So now all we care about is the vestiges, everything that's hanging off of it. Well, that's it. At some point it's going to break. And most people settle into that and say, well, yes, I'm in the desert of the real, I don't want to deal with the reality of things, but I'll understand it. I'll understand that I have some concept to be practical still. You don't have any reason to, that was not practical thinking right there. To allow reality to hurt you makes you that's not practical. There you go. So when people say, when Oz said hearts are not practical until they become unbreakable, well, first off, if you're not going to do anything in your life because your heart is not unbreakable, then I wouldn't want you to if it was unbreakable, because you wouldn't stick with anything. You would be probably uncommitted to almost everything because you could get anything you wanted. You wouldn't have any restrictions. I'm not talking about restrictions in the way of, crossing the line in the sand or getting out of the box that we're all stuck in. I'm talking about the reaction time of things. You won't have any reaction, anything? Well, it'd be pretty useless right there to be human. You have no reason to be human with that heart unless it is fragile. Because weakness is just as important as strengths. So right there when people say, when Oz said hearts are not practical until they become unbreakable. Well, it's not practical thinking to say that we can't be weak. You know, we can't go through weakness, we can't go through pain in that way, because there's no practical thinking in that. You can't learn anything unless you see everything from every side and angle you can. You know, so if your heart gets broken, you'll see something else. So if your heart isn't broken, you'll see something else. But if all you do is say, well, we have to get out of that other state of mind because we can only see things in this way, well, then it's pretty useless to see anything. Because if there's only one way to, if there is ways to see things that are different, then you have to use what means you have to gain that strength. To say like, oh, you know, I can be strong too, even in this time of the breakable heart, or this time of my feelings and emotions really hitting me hard. But there's nothing there if you're going to avoid it. You know, and that's the one thing that I've learned, especially about hearts. You know, hearts are not practical. I think they are. But what we think is practical is not practical. If it was, then nobody would be put in jail, first off, because there wouldn't have been an institution of thought to change or chain anybody up, because that wouldn't make sense. Why is it practical to, you know, do that to people? Because, for one, you know, look at us insane asylums. Unless people are basically, we try to say that, you know, we're innocent until proven guilty. But that's not true. Because if we were innocent until proven guilty, you wouldn't call certain things practical and other things not. You wouldn't be able to. Because what's practical? Maybe what that person did is practical to them. Maybe not be practical to you. But then again, the way you look at them, you make it sound like nobody else has thought of that before. I highly doubt that. But it's a nice ideal to believe that most societies and people beforehand in our histories, in any histories, couldn't have done this. Couldn't have ever thought that way about it. But they thought the exact same way. The only difference being is that entertainment has a spleen that opens up everything. And that opening up is everywhere. So people disregard or discredit or sort of make a wave and say, well, that is why people do this. No, people have been doing this for years. Explain to me why they did it before then. Because there's no official, you know, stamp of that's why this is happening. There is none. If there was, it wouldn't have, you know, there would be no directorial debut of anything as such, because people wouldn't know about it. It wouldn't have an initial reaction to be created in a film because it would be too new of an idea. You know, let's break tradition. Let's make something that is happening now. Well, first off, you would have to know what's happening now. So with rape, with molestation, all this stuff has been happening for a long time. Obviously it has. Because if it didn't, we wouldn't be able to make it in film because we wouldn't even know about it. We wouldn't even know or use it or try to initiate any response in a book, in entertainment in any form. There would be none. So, the practical. The practical, I think, is the opposite. But that's the thing about being practical. You know, people need a definitive reason. You know, what's the old saying, you know, nail in the coffin with things. Well, I don't want to be in the coffin. So, I don't want the nail in the coffin. So, no, thank you. Sorry. I'll float away. Thank you very much. And I think that's the difference, is that a lot of people would try to embrace the idea and feeling of getting an answer. That's credible to a lot of people. Well, nothing is credible, really. You can point back at anything. There's no record of anything that will record anything, because it won't mean anything. And the proof is Roman Empire's gone. You know, the history lesson of it doesn't really say anything unless we see the results that it could happen even worse. Ready for love, as if having money, a stable job, etc., makes you ready for a relationship and marriage. I love this. When people say this, you ready for love? And people use it in that way. I kind of was thinking about that when I heard it about, I don't know, I saw a few things about it where people try to, initiate that to somebody who's younger and saying like, oh, you can't fall in love in this age. That's not necessarily true. It's very, as going back to practical, it's very practical to think that you wouldn't see outside of the box of what relationship that you created with somebody. Which may not be true for everybody. And most likely is not true for everybody. Because if it were, well then, you wouldn't, there would be no reason to, say, well, you can't use other ways to get a relationship, because you can. There's many different ways people got into relationships in the past, and, I wouldn't know which one is the right way or the wrong way, because if it works out, then there's a lot that can do it. But it's saying that, having money, a stable job, etc., it makes you ready for a relationship or marriage to a lot of people. And that's when I know they're not the right person for me. It's true, to be fair, having money, if that's a reason to be in a relationship, that's not a reason I'd want to be in one. That's what I need to do in my regular life. If I wanted to think the same way about my relationship as I thought of my regular life, why would I want to get into a relationship? Don't need to. There's no value in it then, because I need something else of value. And it's not because I need something initially for myself, my want, my need. Oh, that's disgusting. That's disgust right there. No. I mean that if there's something built and you want to screw it up and use something else to create it with, then you're stupid. You're being an asshole because you're using one thing that could be the most important understanding method of somebody individually actually wanting to be there with you, and saying that, well, that's not enough. Then nothing's going to be enough. And that's how I know that's how I know a lot of friendships of mine ended, a lot of relationships in general ended, because the relational partnership wasn't there. The love of that relational partnership wasn't there. And, having that stable job, if you want to call it that, there's no stability on this earth. If you want somebody with a stable job, well, good luck, because you'll never find it. And the main reason why is because there is no stability here with how this society works. I'm not gonna call it civilization because this ain't civilized. Never will be. But this society is not stable, and it's not because of the individuals. We could blame it on the individuals, but most people can be pretty accepting. But it's a matter of who created this and what's the evolution of it. Did it actually start the way our history books has taught us? Did everything start the way it was taught? No. It was practical thinking to lie to the people and keep secrets. But right there is why we have problems nowadays, is because everybody kept secrets before. And still do. Even worse. Because it's easier to keep from people, because we put it on history that we do, so everybody starts accepting it and saying that, well, it's okay. Now all these conspiracies, they're not okay, even if they come from professional people in the field that actually have providable evidence to do so, to say so. Not enough. No, because our government has been this way for a long time, so there's an established connection to it. There's no established connection to somebody that you just met that has evidence of stuff. Well, the established connection should be there, but most scientists and mathematicians are not against the grind anymore. They just listen to the grind, and grind, and grind, and grind, and that's all they do. They don't do anything else for the communities. They do a lot more for the people in charge. That's why most scientists and mathematicians that are on that side of the picture, you don't hear about them much. And you may hear about some idea of them, or get, an interview with them once in a while. Here is our expert right here in the scientific field, and that's all you get. A little speech from them, a little quivoky, a little querying on subject matter, and then that's all. You get 5 minutes of fame for not going against the grain. And I think that's what it means to be, you know, ready for love. Being ready for love is just like being ready for death. It's that venture into the unknown. Are you prepared to go to the unknown? Or are you prepared to just live out your life? Then just live your life. Don't waste your time with somebody. That's not practical. You know, that's not practical right there. To be with somebody because they have money, they have a stable job. I certainly wouldn't want to be with a girl who said, hey, you have money, you have a stable job, Marcello. Well, that's the relationship is over, lady. It's true, you know. That's not what I need. Now, I'm not saying that there are other needs that men and women have, of course. But if those are the needs you have, then, sorry, logic and reason don't play into a factor of that. And I think that's the difference between what we have seen and what we do see every day. And that's, I think, what I meant by being ready for love. That when you can't really be ready for love, you can be ready to go into the unknown. You know, I wouldn't even say you need to be ready for it. You know, that's why most people's mentalities are based on the idea of having money, having a stable job. That's enough to say I could be with anybody. You know, it's not even about that, because truly anybody can be with anybody. It's a matter of them wanting to be together, for one, though. So to say that having a stable job and money can provide that, well, then I wouldn't want to be with them, because if that's the only thing that provides that reason to be with that person, how do I know they care about me in that form? They may not at all. They may just be there because they're hanging on. It's fine to hang on in life, but it's not fine to hang on to somebody in life. There's a big difference, you know. Not letting go, you know. You gotta have the love that lets go, you know. It's a song I just heard on Hannah Montana, just watching it. And it's true, though. It's very true, you know. You gotta have that love that lets go. Because if you don't, it's pretty useless love, you know. And it's not really saying that you have to let go. It's that sometimes you gotta let people experience what they experience in life. And it's not about cheating or jealousy or being with other people. No, it's actually about that person being a person and going through their troubles. You know, whether we like it or not, we're gonna have that. And people may not like that, you know, because everybody, you know, it's like me saying what I've said before about relationships. You know, being with somebody means you've now attained the idea that this person knew other people before you. You're not the only one there. Now, if you want that person to get rid of all those people, well then, bye-bye. You better leave. Because you're going to lose that person very quickly. You know, I never really established that I'd wanted that to go away from my past experience. But it would have been good for her. You know. But that's because you could see it in how she was feeling about things. Even if she felt like she could deal with it, she couldn't, because of how she was acting with me. You know, and what she said in general, you could see it, you know. She can't trust to have a best friend. She can't trust to tell everybody everything that she needs to tell them, that she needs to be responsible for. Doesn't matter. Because at a certain point, that's the problem with being ready for love, and the way that most people has connected the dots to. That's not love. That's something practical that's there, and you may not be open to it at all. You know, I could learn to love. Then maybe you shouldn't be in love. Oh, gee. I mean, it's true, though, you know. If you truly have to learn to love somebody, what happened to your love? That's all I gotta ask, you know. Do you have any love in you? Because you don't have to learn to love if you truly do love. And I think that's what really ended it between me and my ex, for example, because she had said that. And that kind of proved to me that, shit, this person truly doesn't know how to love. And, you know, or did and cannot anymore. Then, you know, she's provided herself with the idea of being practical and saying, well, it's not practical to be in love. Then, you know, I'm sorry, but everything is not practical then, you know. I could agree with that, you know, that hearts are not practical, but then I would have to say that everything else isn't either. Because I wouldn't find anything else practical then, unless I had the practicality of my heart. That's the only way you can learn about anything else, through your heart. If you don't learn it through your heart, then nothing else will matter. Just having something practical doesn't mean you care about it. And the only way you can care about something is through your heart. You don't just say, I care about this, and then number it. Hey, the first that numbers makes the tragedy come to form. Yikes. I think that made it easy for me to leave in a lot of ways, with a lot of my friendships too, because that idea of the hearts, of ready for love, of stuff like that, it really exploded from these people. It's just like Edward Snowden. When you call somebody's bluff, such as the government's, said to not hide anything of importance, what happens then? And that's what happened with Edward Snowden. I think a good example is that Snowden has said already that, he's pretty useless. And in a lot of ways, he is. But it's because when you call somebody's bluff, like the government, saying that they don't hide anything of importance, or they don't do anything besides what their logistics and their law that speaks says. Well, the thing is, all those institutions that are so powerful can make laws and regulations for themselves. All the corporations, all the banks, everybody, they can make any law they want and pass it, because they have the money to support anybody in the lobbyists to support it. So they could make any laws or rules or regulations. They could change them anytime they want. We can't. I couldn't go into going, hey, I want to change the laws and be an individual. Nope. Can't do that. It's a nice ideal. And then yet people put down the fact when people want to secede from this United States. But already the Federal Reserve Bank is not even part of the United States. But nobody speaks ill of them. That they have the power to manipulate the machine of the stock market and the banks and everything, and call back, as they did before in the Great Depression when they called it in. And that's why the Great Depression settled in, because the banks certainly closed later on when the Federal Reserve asked it from them too. This is the thing. We don't really care if something has been going along for a long time. So we're okay with the government doing bad things, but when an individual tries to do the exact same thing, you're wrong. No, that guy shouldn't be doing that. But all these guys that are part of this, select club, let's call, if we want to call it that way, but to be fair, it's just in a social network, but it's just a smaller one, with the group of people that have a lot of money and a lot of power. So it's okay as long as they have that lot of money, a lot of power on them. We can't speak ill of them, Even if we do, it doesn't mean anything, because we'll still live by those institutions that are doing whatever they fucking want. But when an individual does that, oh no, you can't do that. You can't secede from us. You hate America. You think the Federal Reserve Bank loves America from what they're doing to it? I'd like to see it. But I think that's what Edward Snowden was trying to get to. That when you call the government's bluff on what they said they're doing, and they're not. That's why I think he personally did it. It wasn't because he was trying to be advantageous or be a martyr or be in any form of another to just be there. No, he did it most positively because he was doing his job and he didn't feel like he was doing his job. There you go. That's a pretty strong case right there. If you're doing your job and you're finding out that everybody's being treated like those that should be the enemy only, that everybody's being treated like an enemy, and they said, and it said that this isn't what's happening here, but it is, why wouldn't you reveal it? You're an asshole if you don't, obviously. And I consider a lot of people in these fields assholes, because they're doing it just for the paycheck. They're not doing it because they actually care. If they did, first off, one person does not give up their life and sacrifice everything to be hated by everybody. And reviled by the media and everything. People don't just do that. If they did, we would have a lot more people than Edward Snowden, Bradley Manning, all these people that supposedly have been outspoken individuals doing it. Because everybody want to be the bad person and say, let's do it, let's all do it, everybody. Why not? Truly, everybody would be doing it then. I'm not lying, It would be a very true statement that you would have to see a relative amount of people doing it to show that it's a falsity. Or to show that it's based on them just getting their images out there. I'm talking individually, not what they actually say, And kill the messenger, not the message, let the message stand on its own and do whatever it fucking wants, but don't let the messenger stand on their own. Because, you know, we can't allow that. You know, we can't allow the messenger to stay alive, because the message, we don't need to worry about that. And they don't. You know, that shows the practicality and their logic. But see, that's the thing about the logic of what manipulates in our society. Everybody thinks the same logic that they see is the logic that they should be. So when people say, what would you do if you're in a high position, a high power position, and representatives and so on and so forth, I do the exact same thing and hurt people at my level. But you're already here, you're at the bottom, you're experiencing what you're gonna hurt. Like, to me, how could you do that? Truly, that's what I would say. But that's how I feel about it. You know, and that's where I can say, you know, can I have a fuck you to those people? Because if that's how you truly care about people, first off, I don't know how you could have a family at all. Just saying, you know, there's a big difference between what people say is important to them. Like, to say that your family is important to you, your wife, your daughters, your sons, whatever, can be proven wrong in an instant, especially in that way. That's exactly what happened there. You have this kind of twist in what people think is right, and then they throw it right in your face and say, you know, you're wrong. And that's what happens there in this society, you know, sarcasm, cynicism. Those are things that are happening daily. You know, there's no equivalent to it, because there's nobody else trying to smash it up, except people like Edward Snowden. And I'm not putting it on a pedestal or anything, because I don't know exactly what his initial thought was, but most likely it was that this isn't right. This isn't right, you know, and that's what really triggers people to do something about that. I mean, that's good that somebody can register those signals still. I didn't know anyone else could. You know, I'm surprised that he can, because, you know, to hear people acknowledge that the wrong is actually noticed instead of the right being considered wrong. You know, doing something good and being bad for it. You know, being treated badly for it. Because everybody has to do things bad to be treated well. You know, you have to do things just like the people in charge to be treated well in this society. That's what most people believe. But in actuality, it's mostly being treated with disregard and hate. That comes with huge ramifications of trying to do good. It doesn't really come off the other way, you know. It's a nice, slick road, of course, because it's always going to be slippery. You know, it's going to be a slippery road. But, you know, if you want to slip up and just let what happens happen, it's not about karma at that point. At that point, karma has probably dealt itself in you so much that you don't even have the incredulous reason to worry. Don't worry. You shouldn't worry. I don't even know why people are worried about terrorists or anything, because when I think about everything that's happened, it's so funny people would worry about this stuff because of how they treat people themselves. Why are you worried about your life? You're worried about your life because you're worried that you're going to be treated, you know, that you're going to get something in the end that won't be good. Well, maybe you shouldn't have done bad. That's why people have this, you know, fear and hope in them to have some kind of evangelistic ending, where the ending will show the great success. But you failed. You failed miserably in treating people right. Or you failed miserably at saying that doing wrong makes you right. That's the practicality that most people have. So when practicality comes into the picture, I go, well, that's an asshole right there. And that's how I personally see it. That's a douchebag right there. It's the same thing that I've heard about Joe Rogan's Question Everything. There you go. This guy, you know, it's like my brother said, you know, oh, that sounds intelligent. Oh, never mind. Full of shit. And it's true, you know. Bill Hicks and George Carlin were the best at it, because they showed exactly how much full of shit people can be if it's really about the money, if it's really about the popularity, and it never was to either of them. George Carlin is proof of that. He did that his whole life, and never once did he have to change his cynicism or sarcasm to hurt people with it. Even in his jokes, he never actually hurt people with it. He told them the truth. And he made fun of the fact that people don't want anything different. And he also made fun of the fact of how people make mistakes and make them together. That we all make those kind of mistakes, like walking down a staircase and pretending, not seeing that there's not another step, and just pretending that you're just kind of dancing or doing something else. That there's a connection between things, but when you break it down, that's the problem. You break it down. You're not showing that you want to build anything if you want to break things down, and that's what practicality does, and that's the problem with practicality. It breaks things down. Well, why do you want to break things down? It doesn't sound like you want to create anything if you want to break things down. It doesn't sound like you want to create a good society if you want to break things down. Let me break things down into numbers here. Well, then you're already looking to control people. It does. It's a very powerful thing because it controls a lot of people. Numbers, definitely. Woo! But it's the old idea. The one who numbers sets off the tragedy. It's true. That was the Mist series right there, if you're very interested at all. Read the Mist trilogy. It's a great series, and it shows that numbers set off a tragedy. Especially if you deal with numbers and you're the one who set it up that way. Yikes. Motherfucker, you're heartless. But you're not really heartless. You just use practicality instead of your heart. And that's fine. For you. But see, this is the thing about individuality. It doesn't work in freedom. Supposed freedom. If you have to be an individual but have to use no heart, then that's not being an individual. We're humans. So right there, if you're saying you have to be practical in your thinking, well, no thank you. I don't need to be practical in my thinking. You can be practical if you want to be, but you can't tell me to be practical just because. And that's what I think of with Edward Snowden, that it was an idea of pretty much looking at things with mass, seeing that the difficulty of dealing with something that is a lie. And it's the whole idea of not even taking the opportunity or taking the responsibility, but seeing that your responsibility in that job was all made up. It was all made up in that career. Because you could do anything you fucking want in that. All the responsibility that you saw, everything that you were eager to get into, was a lie. That's why Edward Snowden left. And it makes sense to me. I can see exactly what it means by doing that. So that's where people don't look at it. They don't look at it that way. They only look at it from the established point of view. Established meaning the establishment's point of view. Do you get anything out of the establishment yourself? No, not really. If you watch the news, it's just entertainment, don't worry. Especially, the top corporations' news. You can find a lot of different kind of newscasts that are not based on those top conglomerates, that are very truthful and honest just about the news in general. And you can make your own ideas about what that means to you, what that means to the world. But if you use the major elements and try to say that what their bias and views are and opinions are is the showing of truth, then you've already established that what you want is to only defend yours. Then why would any other country want to be close to us? That's a practicality nobody sees. Why would any other country want to be involved with us if we know we're just going to be out for our own selves? It means we're going to do something to take advantage and take an opportunity to hurt others just for our own benefits. We've done it before. It started our history. So right here, right now, if we're feeling in the same logical extent of thinking, if we have to go through some evil to get to the good, I don't want that good. Because that's not good. That's just a vaporized good. That vaporized all the good that actually was there. It's just the vestiges that we hang on to of good. It's not us being good. It's us dealing with the fact that we're bad. We're evil. But we don't want to do good to make that go away. We don't want to deal with that side of ourselves. If I was being taken advantage of I would have a lot more friends to hang out with. It's true. So, this is what my grandma has told me, Mamina. She's told me, you were taken advantage of by my ex, for example, or by her friend, or, just hanging out with him. And even other friends. Let's just talk about every single friendship I've had and say, everybody's taken advantage of me. Yeah, right. They would still want to hang out with me. Just saying. And to be truthful, they probably would continuously contact me in a very, verbose extent. If I was being taken advantage of, I would have a lot more friends, though. It's true. Woo! I definitely would. But I don't think it's about that. I think it's about people sharing and caring. And I think when Mamina says something like that, I think, oh shit, it's her bitterness. And it is. And it's not about bitterness toward me or anything. No. You gotta understand the difference between people's bitterness. Sometimes bitterness is built on what you've done in your lifetime. So if you say, you try to help somebody in your lifetime and you figure out that those people don't care that you did anything good, or they don't show it right back to you. Or let's say, for example, that you've done the good, but you get treated worse from other people around you. What can you do about that? Well, you can be bitter about what you did for other people, but that has nothing to do with what just happened. What just happened to you is not something else that came out of what you did, because it doesn't. I think when people say like, oh, it was the circumstances that made me change into this bitter person now. No, it wasn't. The circumstances was something you made up because you didn't want to deal with the fact that you did good and other people did bad. That's it. You don't, and that's the extent of what people think is tolerable. That if people think like me, we'll do better in the world. No, we wouldn't, because you'd be bitter with everybody that's doing bad. So it doesn't matter if you're doing good, because you're still having that bitterness, and that could hold a big extent of how you're going to treat people. So if people thought like you, there would never be any solution to anything. Because one thing that deters conflict is not being bitter towards other people, or being bitter about what you've done towards other people in a good way. Because if you've done things in a good light, and all of a sudden it's not in a good light anymore, that's not really showing that we could have a pleasant future with those kind of people. We would have assholes everywhere. Assholes who want to have the directorial key to everything. This is how the action should be on this camera of this world. That's what it would be. And that's when I hear people say, because I probably have heard this before, if I was being taken advantage of, I would have a lot more friends to hang out with. It's true. That's why I'm not hanging out with people most of the time, even as a kid. After I saw, like, the bullying, the revenge, just tired of it. Didn't hang out with anybody after a while. It was just too tiring. It was like, is this a joke? It's true. But once you saw that it wasn't a joke, you didn't laugh anymore. You didn't use sarcasm or cynicism to do anything, because it was pretty useless. You only used it when you actually wanted to make a joke, not actually hurt somebody with that joke. Because you realize the vestiges of what humans do. You realize that talking about Anthony Weiner, for example, about all his sexcapades, is not going to change the fact that he may actually have an important value in the political realm. It doesn't matter. But if you want to ignore that stuff, if you want to ignore how he talks about issues versus his personal life, then we'll never get anywhere in the world. Because we always worry about the personal life. Well, the personal is not they're not doing it against you. They're doing it against themselves. It's like my personal life. I look at porn. I've done a lot of different things that have been very much on a verbose level. Let's call it. I've seen it all. But I've also cared about it all. It's not like I'm doing it because I feel like I have the need. No. It's actually not about need. It's about understanding the concept of who we are as humans. And if we don't want to understand that concept, then we don't want to take the time to look at it. We don't want to take the time to try to see what else is there for us. And I think that's the thing that I've noticed between what we see in the world, if we talk about it that way. I'm not shocked, appalled, afraid, surprised. I'm ashamed that I'm not trusted by family members who say they love me. There you go. You can't have love without trust. but it sucks. There you go. I'm going to say it. It sucks. When you have love without trust, it sucks. It's not the kind of love you truly would want. But it is love. It's just a bad love that has this leering, I would say, this leering sort of inductive sort of, I'm going to show you my love, but I'm not going to show you anything else. You know? And that's the thing that you see every single time it happens. It sucks because you seriously see why somebody, you know, can hide, you know, keep secrets, and lie to you. You know, that makes it the easiest thing. Because if you truly don't want to trust somebody, but you have to be around them, that's what you do. Like, for example, I would never not tell my grandma something because I don't trust her. It's mostly because I don't want her to know. It's a big difference. And I think it's because of what the factor between me and Mamina is. It's the same factor that I have with my mom. My mom kind of stopped at a certain level, but she understands where I'm going. Because she's the one who gave me a lot of the emotions, feelings, sensitivities, and didn't discourage it. Mamina, on the other hand, did something else, which is become powerful, become very independent. And that's good. But there's a very big difference between being independent and screwing people over. Big difference. And I think that's what I've learned about what psychology really is. Sometimes, a lot of times psychology can be used to manipulate how you think. So if you think you're doing right, you're only going to use it for your own right. So like when people use God, for example, they'll use it to have their advantage, Sid. You know, of like, oh, well, you know, yours is wrong, mine is right. But they wouldn't use it all the time. They use it for their own conveniences, of course. Well, if you're going to use God as convenience, then there is no God. Because God would not allow that. He would not tolerate that because he or she, whatever, would not tolerate that. Because it's like that creation of you to use and scapegoat something that created you as for your own means of life, guess what? Right there, you're not going to be in his good side. And you're not, because you're using him for what you want. Well, if you want something, guess what? That's the problem. That doesn't show that you truly have any appreciation for the creation from that Christ, from that God. Now you've proven that what's the most important part of the creation? The fact that you can get something now. There you go. And that's what I've seen between what religion does, and that's why I'm lost in the middle of nowhere. Because at least here there's no ends. There's no like definite ends, you know. Because that's what too many people do in life. With practicality and everything, they use it as a means to an end. But the end is already there. We don't need to make another end. The end is the end of life, is death. You know, I don't need to make another end while I'm living. You know, I'm not perfect about it, but it's definitely true. You know, there's nothing I could register to understand the concept of, you know, getting that end. There's no end here, you know. And I think that's the real calling right there, is that, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not shocked about not being trusted. I'm not shocked because most people use the idea of not being told everything as a means to say you don't love me or you don't trust me with something. Well, it's not about that. I wish it was about that, but it's actually about your opinion about things. It's actually about your opinion about using every single Maury show and every single Jerry Springer show as a means to an end in life, to tell me about the person I'm with or around. If I wanted that all my life, I can watch it myself. I understand. You know, and that's where I'll go. I'll watch the TV and tell you what they know. But guess what? I tell you what I know. I don't tell you what the TV knows, because the TV doesn't know nothing. It's just another means to an end to deceive and not be friends. But I'm a person who believes a little deeper than that. That is, if there was a killing streak, it wasn't a killing streak that anybody else made. It was a killing streak that you made when your practicality got over the fact that it needed a heart. You know, I'm not appalled about it. Not afraid. Not surprised. You know, I'm not appalled because it's not appalling. But it's mostly not appalling to you. I wish it was more appalling to you what you said, but, you don't even listen to yourself. Being afraid? Oh, no, thanks. Nah, that's a waste right there. Surprised? No, not really surprised. I'm ashamed that I'm not trusted, but that's another reason altogether. Practicality has no logic in that, because if you truly see the kind of person I am, you'd know that I'm different from you. And have to be trusted for that kind of person I am, not for the fact that you're the kind of person you are, and you just trust me on your terms. So everybody out there, I do love you all. This is Pink Cloud Radio. Death King, a semblance. Requirement, nothing. But that's really it. And take care all. And I'll talk to you next week again.